Hey, Chris Lovingood here. In this video today, you are going to hear from Blake Scholl. He is the CEO of Boom Supersonic. The company is working on a faster than the speed of sound jet with the hope to take passengers on board to different destinations on the planet with a significant reduction of time compared to today's flights. And the idea is to have this ready by the end of the decade. Here our conversation on banana pudding. You just opened up your manufacturing facility in Greensboro. That is a magnificent update for Boom Supersonic. Tell me a little bit about your excitement for finally getting that process going.
Well, we're just amazed at how quickly we've been able to do this. I mean, our goal to provide supersonic flights ultimately to every passenger and every route around the planet. And we built the very first super factory right there in Greensboro, North Carolina, in just 17 months from groundbreaking to opening the doors yesterday.
For the people who are not aviation experts, like I'm thinking, okay, how is testing going to work? I mean, am I going to look up out my house and I suddenly see a jet flying through? Talk to me a little bit about testing.
Well, one of the reasons we picked North Carolina for the super factory is that we want to get the airplane out over open ocean to do our supersonic testing, where there's plenty of airspace and nobody we're going to bother. And these airplanes are designed to be as quiet or quieter than any other airplane flying. And so this is something that's going to really blend into the air traffic we have already. And the testing is going to take place, clear of where anybody's around.
And obviously, this is coming at a time where, the people I'm sure would definitely welcome having their flights cut in half, basically, is what it's kind of touting there. Tell me a little bit about your hopes of being here in North Carolina. Yes, for the testing aspect of it, but I mean, you're bringing jobs here.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we plan to build hundreds, if not thousands, of supersonic airliners. And the first super factory is designed to produce 33 per year. We have plans to build a total of two, maybe three in North Carolina. And that's up to 100 supersonic airplanes taking off from Greensboro every year. And that's going to require an enormous amount of skilled labor to be able to make that happen, well over 2,000 jobs. And honestly, that's the biggest reason why we're happy to do this in North Carolina, because they're great people, whether talking engineers or technicians or all the other kind of people that are required to support a manufacturing operation. And if we look back here a little bit, we saw in the semiconductor industry that we let advanced manufacturing jobs leave the country and they went to China. And once that happened, it's ferociously difficult to get them back. And we want to keep aerospace manufacturing here in the US. The best way to do that is to make sure the next generation of airplanes are built here. The next generation is supersonic, and it's going to be right there in North Carolina.
A lot of people are seeing what's unfolding with Boeing right now. There's obviously the whistleblower situation regarding some of some cut corners that the whistleblowers are claiming that Boeing made. Talk to me about the commitment that Boom Supersonic has to making sure a quality product is being created so that people feel safe once they're on board.
It's absolutely job number one is safety and quality. And that's one of the reasons why our XB1 test airplane, which just flew for the first time recently, it was a human piloted airplane because we wanted to invest in our safety culture from day one. I think we've seen that it's hard to build, it's easy to break. And one of the things we do is we actually celebrate our whistleblowers. We know that as we go along developing a product as complex as a supersonic airliner, that there are going to be opportunities for improvement. And what matters is that I, as founder and CEO, and my entire leadership team, we want to hear from our employees when there are opportunities for us to be doing things better. And so we celebrate that. In fact, the entire team on the XB1 has a daily meeting every morning where the first question we say is, hey, who's got a safety or quality issue they want to raise from yesterday? And we talk about it literally every day. We double and triple check everything. And the Overture airplane, we're going to test it exhaustively before we invite the flying public on board, because safety is job number one.
Just elaborate a little bit more because you seem like you're very open with your employees about, hey, if you see an issue, like bring it up. Why is that the mantra that you've kind of taken, to have them bring up these issues instead of, because a lot of people may go, oh, I don't want to make the boss mad, but hey, come forward with us.
One of the things I've found as a leader is it's really important how I take bad or difficult news. If I'm only easy to hear, good news, then when I'm not going to hear about problems, and problems are the most important thing for us to hear about as leaders. And I'll tell you a story about this. A week before we flew the XB1 airplane, we actually thought we were about to fly. And one of our young up and coming female engineers raised her hand literally the day before a flight and said, hey, I found a problem. We got to look at it. I'm going to help you out, but you need to know about it. And that resulted in us delaying that first flight of the XB1 almost a week. And we celebrated that employee. Her name's Grace. We celebrated her in front of the entire company because that's what we want to see. But would we rather not have the delay? Of course. But when there's something an employee finds that can be made better, when there's a problem that gets uncovered, we want to know about it. And there are always going to be those things. The difference is whether our employees are excited to share them with us so we can deal with it or not. I think it's the only way to be, Chris. Like if we want to build safety is not about the technology, it's about the culture. And it's about getting people to understand that the company values it. And when they see opportunities to improve it, they speak up about it and they understand that they're going to have the resources and the time and the support to do what they know is a great job.
Let's take a little peer into the future if we can. Let's talk timeline a little bit because I'm not sure if it's shifted since the last time we talked. When could we see the very first complete Overture jet created?
Well, it's going to be about 3 or 4 years. And I mean, to put that in context, 3 years ago was the first time we came to North Carolina and said, hey, what do we think about doing a plant here? And from 3 years, from literally our first visit to North Carolina, we now have the factory built and its doors opening. And it's going to be another roughly 3, maybe 4 years before we see that first beautiful supersonic airliner roll out of those hangar doors.
So we got 3 years before it's actually built. And then when could we see the first test flight?
First test flight, probably about 4 to 5 years. And then, our goal is to, be ready for passengers by the end of the decade.
Passengers by the end of the decade. And you've already got I think 130 different, I'm not sure if it's clients or actual spoken for jets for it.
Yeah, we have 130 aircraft on order and pre-order from United Airlines, American Airlines, Japan Airlines. What we've found is I don't know a single passenger that doesn't want a faster flight. And what airlines are realizing is that they also want to provide that to their customers. This is really the first innovation we've had in air travel since the dawn of the jet age in the 1960s. And so it's something that really everybody can be excited about.
And for the people who may be kind of skittish, because anyone could Google, faster than the speed of sound jets, and they'll come up with the Concorde, right? It stopped flying 20 plus years ago. What would you say to someone who has maybe safety concerns about maybe going that fast, and if, I don't know, some sort of mishap or to wind up like what happened with the Concorde?
Well, we take safety incredibly seriously, and if we look back to Concorde, they had one awful, horrific accident in 27 years of flying, which actually is a good safety record judged by 1960 standards. But we've come so far, and what was done on Concorde today wouldn't be considered safe. For example, they put 2 engines right next to each other. So if one has a problem, guess what? It's going to hurt the one right next to it. If you look at Overture, we've got 4 engines and they're spread apart. So if one fails, the other 3 are going to keep running. We've got reinforced fuel tanks. We've got all kinds of redundancy on that airplane that was not done on Concorde. And lastly, we're going to test it like crazy. We're building 5 test airplanes and we're going to fly them for thousands of hours, doing not just the normal stuff, but doing all the extreme stuff as well, the things that should never happen in flight. We're going to test this exhaustively. And only when we're comfortable and when our regulator is comfortable are we going to say, we're ready for you to step on board.
Is there anything else you wanted to say that I didn't already ask you about? You've been very detailed.
I'd like to talk about kind of what this means for people's lives. Today, if you've got a long weekend, you probably take a road trip. In the future with supersonic flight, you could go to Europe for a long weekend, or a vacation that you might today do in Europe, you could do in Africa or Asia. And our goal is to make places like Sydney, Australia, as accessible as Honolulu is today. And when I think about that, I think about the second order impacts, the trips that people are going to take that you just wouldn't take today. I think children who are going to grow up having broken bread with other cultures and really learn firsthand about our shared humanity. I also think about the children who are going to grow up with their parents at home because mom's supersonic flight got her back from her meeting in time for dinner. Those are the things that get me really excited about providing supersonic flight to every passenger on every route, and ultimately being able to expand the human connection we have through being able to do more in-person interaction all over the planet.
Now, 2 more questions for you because I know we're at the wrap up here. In terms of, you said you want to make this accessible to a lot of people. In terms of price, I know you can't, predict what it'll be like a few years down the line, but will this be an affordable means for people to travel? Because right now, traveling is already costly, especially with inflation.
Yeah, if we look at Concorde, the fares were just absolutely stratospheric for supersonic flight, more like $20,000. And for the vast majority of people, that's a bucket list item. That's not transportation. And what we are doing on the very first Overture is cutting that by about 3/4, which means if you can afford to fly business class, you can afford to fly supersonic. And that's just the starting point. There's going to be an Overture 2, an Overture 3, and just like whether we're talking cell phones or electric cars or computers, we're going to find that price point continues to come down. And we get up every day and we say, how do we make the airplane the most efficient it possibly can be, so the largest number of people can afford to fly on it? Ultimately, imagine being able to get anywhere in the world in 4 hours for a fare that's completely affordable.
And lastly, obviously, we cover a lot of climate change concerns. For people who are wondering, we got another jet in the sky. What would you say to the people who are saying, are you investing in green technologies?
They absolutely are. I mean, again, it goes back to this future. We want more people to be able to go more places more often. And to do that, we need flights that are faster, more affordable, more convenient. And we also need to remove sustainability as a question that people even need to think about. And that's why we've designed Overture around not just being able to run on regular fuel, but also being able to run on up to 100% sustainable aviation fuel, which is the latest generation of synthetic fuel. And we're always looking at what is the most scalable, environmentally friendly, and economical way to power this airplane. And we think we can be a big leap forward. And passengers won't have to choose between faster, more comfortable, and more sustainable. They can actually have all three.